We are back at 1 o'clock with these dramatic images. Flames sparked by flooding destroying 2 homes on the South Shore as the blizzard has proved to be a real force.
Families pulled to safety, images that will linger long after the floodwaters recede.
And scenes like that rescue, really hardly what you'd expect to see in a blizzard. You think blizzard, you think snowfall. But for many communities along the shoreline today, the accumulation really hasn't been much. It's more been about the amount of water they've had in the streets. So we're going to break all that down for you. Good afternoon once again. I'm David Wade.
And I'm Kate Merrill. Thanks for joining us. It is 1 o'clock right now. We're going to stay with you for the next half hour to keep you up to date on what's going on outside your home if you're inside watching TV. Todd Guttner joins us now with a look at what is happening on the map. And I guess that is what's going to tell us what the rest of our day.
Yeah, and we're seeing improvements, but it's not back to normal for sure, and it's going to take some time to get that. In fact, especially along the coastline where we've had such serious flooding. Storm center, 100 miles to our east, still under the influence of it, still seeing pockets of heavier snowfall. Once again, areas that have gotten hit very hard with 16+ inches getting hit hard again. Bristol County from Easton all the way down through New Bedford and Fall River and Taunton. And the good news is the snow is starting to collapse toward the storm center. So it's not going to be this heavy that much longer. It's going to start to taper down and wind down as we go through the next couple of hours. The blizzard warning dropped last hour. Winter weather advisory in place for the area, mostly for blowing snow going through the evening. High wind warning through midnight. Gusts as high as 50, if not 60 miles per hour through the midnight hour. Lastly, the coastal flooding, which was a major issue and is still one along the South Shore. We have another high tide coming up at 4:45. The wind direction has changed. It's now an offshore component, a northwesterly component. So while the coast here in eastern Mass is going to get affected and we'll still have very high water and problems, we're starting to shift our attention to the bay side of the Cape because all the water that's here is going to get pushed here. And there could be at least moderate coastal flooding, if not pockets of major as well. That's something we'll be monitoring through the rest of the afternoon and evening. We've got much more coming up. We'll go through a list of impressive snowfall amounts in a few more minutes. David and Kate.
All right, Todd, thank you. Well, the tidal surge has been the biggest problem from this storm. The water wreaking havoc on the coast, creating scenes just like this. Jim Smith has been there all morning for us. And Jim, these firefighters really had their work cut out for them.
They really did, Kate, between a house fire that spread to a couple of different homes and the high tide, which happened at about 3:30 in the morning. It was a real mess down here in Scituate, and you can still see some standing water even as I speak. Take a look down the road here by the Hatherley Beach section, and you can see that the high tide at about 3:30 in the morning deposited a bunch of seawater, and a lot of that ended up going into homes. We have another high tide coming up at 4, but when this earlier tide came in, it took no prisoners. They went from house to house, police, fire, and National Guard troops, using heavy equipment to pluck people out of their flooded homes here in Scituate and bring them to safety. Those who live in this neighborhood say the early morning high tide moved in quickly.
Oh, they tried their hardest as ever to get down there. We saw them. We parked the truck up and waded through chest deep water.
The fire chief says about 80 people had to be rescued from this neighborhood alone. Some of them thought they could ride out the storm, but when the power went out and the waters rose, it was time to get out.
I think the problem with this one was we didn't really anticipate the severity, so it ramped up really fast. And then during the high tide last night, I stayed up to kind of keep an eye on the tide, and the water came up really fast.
Fast, and take a look way down the road there. That's the Atlantic Ocean, and it's obviously very rough already. But once again, high tide in excess of 3 hours away. And to some extent, we will have a repeat performance down here, although at least astronomically, this high tide is not expected to be as bad as the earlier high tide, but it was really something as these waters came in. You always have those people that feel like they can wait it out and get through the storm, but once the power goes out and the house gets cold, they kind of change their minds, and that's when the fire, police, and National Guard moved in. Kate and David, back to you.
All right, Jim Smith, thank you for that. Well, from floodwaters to fire, flames destroyed 2 homes in Scituate this morning. Take a look at these pictures. The fire started in a vacant home, fueled by high winds. The fire quickly. The fire chief says it has been a challenging 18 hours that could have been much worse.
That's what was going to happen. All 5 houses were going to burn down. The first house got going. The second one was only about 6 feet from the other house, so there was no way we could stop that. But there was, there was about double that distance, about 15 feet between the next two. So we decided to, fortunately, put a few of our guys in harm's way.
Now, here was the big problem. Because of the floods, firefighters had a tough time reaching the flames, making this tough situation even more difficult.
You can actually see some of the firefighters, perhaps in that image, wearing survival suits, what you would normally see them wearing if they were going to try to rescue someone in a harbor or in the ocean. They were wearing those to get through the very chilly water just to try to get to these homes. So
you can see the wind there. It's just unbelievable gusts there, of course, off the ocean. And those homes are so close together, if you know Scituate, that was just a recipe for disaster.
How about the picture that Jim Smith showed us of the ocean? Mighty angry ocean right there.
That will turn out to be the story of this storm, is what's happening on our coastline.
In Quincy, where they've been seeing flooding throughout the morning.
So let's go now to Jim Armstrong, who is in Quincy. See you, it's such a mess out there.
Where are you, Jim?
Problems on the coastline. Our camera, unfortunately, the changes in temperature and the moisture inside. It's not foggy in Quincy. As a matter of fact, the sun is starting to inside. The Post Island neighborhood, Post Island Road here in Quincy, it's a mess. I mean, the main street here, C Street, is much better now. Traffic is flowing. The waters have receded. Not so in the neighborhoods much closer to the water. The seas breached the seawall, spilling a lot of water into neighborhoods, therefore into homes and into basements. Really, quite a lot for people to deal with here. Couple that with a lot of evacuations and some lost power, too. We did catch up with, because you just can't believe it looks this bad. And here in Quincy, the issue is, again, in the high tide that's going to be coming up in the next couple of hours or so. We're hoping it's not as bad here on C Street.
An indication of the weather, and I was going to say, boy, it's really getting foggy in Quincy.
No, it's more of an indication of our equipment.
There you go. I guess so. We do have a programming note to pass along. If you turned on the TV right now hoping to see Young and the Restless, I'm sorry to disappoint you. We're going to air that tonight at 1:37 a.m., so set the DVR, of course, because we still have a lot more to tell you about this storm. And
our coverage of blizzard of 2010 continues. This image comes to us courtesy of the website Trends Map. It tracks the most popular Twitter trends in the area. And as you can see, shovel is really taking the cake around here today.
Probably complaints that they have to shovel.
And these are live pictures from Sutton now of the snow on the Central Turnpike. Looks like a postcard there with a lot of people heeding the advice, staying off the roads. Good thing. We'll be right back.
There's so much invested here, so many futures at stake. In the next 24 hours, what happens is going to determine the course for these families. And then as they started bringing these guys up one by one, it was as if the whole world was sharing in this feeling of sheer joy. There are two sides to a story. And on a story like this, there's only one emotion.
On the next Dr. Phil, is her husband caring or controlling?
Do you treat her like a...
Today, UBZ TV.
When you should come to Cambridge Eye Doctors. Get a complete eyeglass package for just $79, or get a pair of no-line bifocals for just $170. Spending benefits. Cambridge Eye Doctors. Why pay more?
On January 7th.
Got the hottest acts in country music.
How do I look?
Like a country Barbie.
There's nothing like the road to bring two people together.
Why don't y'all just sleep together, get it over with.
Country strong.
Think you know football better than the pros? Take on the BC sports team. The Sports Hub's Gresh, Zoe, and Hardy in the New England Ford Pro Football Challenge. You could win great weekly prizes, including a Ford F-150. Sign up now at WBZTV.